My name is Kimberly McLaughlin-Smith, and I am the Diversity and Inclusion Specialist here at UNCW. And I wanted to start the panel discussion by just once more, if we could give Christopher Everett a round of applause. First, let's start by introducing yourselves and telling people with 2 sentences or less, because we're conscious of time, y'all, who you are and what you do. And we'll start with Jackie.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Jackie Dollar. I'm an independent filmmaker. I'm a multimedia producer. I make documentaries that tell nuanced stories of the people, places, and cultures that make up our diverse world.
Thank you. Kelly.
Hi, I'm Kelly Ray Williams. I'm a community organizer, community activist, a performance poet, and I'm a community outreach director at the YWCA.
Queen.
Good evening. Gladys Cordelia in Wilmington, one more again. Take my galette. I'm Queen Quet, head of the body of the Gullah Nation. I'm Queen Quet, chiefess and head of state for the Gullah Nation. And I'm going to tell never yet this year before, that is the Gullah language.
My name is Christopher Everett, and I'm the director and producer of Wilmington on Fire.
I'm Kent Chatfield. I was born and raised here in Wilmington, and I've done a lot of research.
So here we go. The first question is, in speaking with people who have seen this film prior to today, I discovered a common thread. Most people were surprised at how well organized and far-reaching the 1898 white militia was. Please share one of your own aha moments that you learned from the film, or expand on that, if you will. And whomever wants to go first, go for it.
Well, I think my aha moment was when I was first filming. I think filming Ken and a few others. I guess just the layers to the whole story. I didn't know that it was so many layers to the whole white supremacy movement and the overthrow of the government. I think that was really what kind of got me just filming. You know, and also just filming people like Ken and Queen Quet and others. I learned so much. It's pretty much, I learned more just doing this documentary than I ever learned even going to college. You know, so it was like a free education, like for like 4 years, you know, doing this.
Wonderful. Anyone else want to talk about an aha moment? Queen.
Yes, an aha moment for me was about the red shirts. Number one, their existence,
Yes.
but also the hierarchy involved, where they were basically the grunts, one might say, according to the film, but they were being directed by the others, so they were the muscle to go in and do the damage. So I thought that that was interesting in terms of how this entire structure was going to pull this off.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
I would say the aha moment for me was learning there was a reason why the culture of Wilmington is the way it is. As someone who's probably the youngest person up here, I went to UNC Wilmington, and I always felt the systematic pressure and oppression from a lot of my professors and community members, and so that's when it clicked for me, that it's so deeply embedded and included in this.
Can't add something to add.
Well, my aha moment was when I see a stadium full of people that are interested in all real history. That's my.
Yes, Jackie.
The documentation for me was particularly powerful. It made me realize that because this history is buried, we know we have a narrative, a different narrative than what's been put forward, that we know in our gut, that is then verified in our documentation. It's just a reminder that those things that you know and that you feel, that they are true. Even when they're not verified, even when they're not documented in the way that people consider to be legitimate, that those things are important and it's valuable to understand your own story, and to feel it and appreciate it.
Thank you. Yeah, and something else can.
Yeah, just remember, the coup winners always write the history. And what you've seen before tonight is not meant true. You're gonna learn, you're gonna see it now. We're gonna bring in the truth.
Thank
We're
you.
not done.
This is a nice segue, actually, Jackie, to what you said, so I'm going to take the next question. Unless someone in the audience had something to add, did anyone have anything they wanted to add this far? Okay, so we'll take the next question. As a North Carolinian born and raised, which I am, I never heard of the only coup d'etat in U.S. history until I moved to Wilmington in 1993. In speaking with countless other North Carolinians over the years, I found that this is common. What is the payoff and or cost of burying this information alongside the many lives that it has claimed? Is it possible that one and all can benefit from the continued telling? Yes.
Well, I call it the Bank of America factor. Up on 3rd Street is the Bank of America. And if the descendants of that property came forward and said, that was our property, it was stolen from us in 1900, and by some miracle, they could get a judge to actually give them their property back that was stolen from them, well, they'd have to go in there to Bank of America, and Bank of America, you know, they're going to lose a $20 or $30 million bill. That is not the concern. What the concern would then be, what about the 10,000 mortgages they've got on all your houses all over New Hanover County? Because they're going to start bringing into question the title of every piece of property in this county. And that's going to stop the banks from lending anybody money to buy houses in Wilmington because there's no clear title of property. There is why nothing's been done about this. They're not worried about the descendants. They're not worried about you. They'll bankrupt you through litigation. No, they're worried about Wells Fargo, Bank of America, the entitled insurance companies. That's why they've never done anything about this.
Thank you, Ken. Anyone is clean.
The cost also, I agree with 100% with everything that's stated. The cost also has to be calculated in terms of the psychological damage, the continued spiritual and moral disenfranchisement of generations of people. You have already removed their ability to gain further wealth by taking away the land. But then the trauma that has been suffered, that my sister here already articulated, is I'm not from North Carolina, I'm from South Carolina. And it was something that I had no clear understanding of, because St. Helena Island to this day is 95% Gullah Geechee, so you look like me. So I was used to coming to a community and trying to gather together people around culture and around dynamics and say, these are things to empower ourselves from, and have them go boldly, you know, as if they still needed to go hide out in the woods for us to have a discussion. And so it shows me that there's an intellectual, a spiritual, and a moral disenfranchisement that has happened here. Even though it happened in 1898, it's still living out in the collective consciousness of the people of today. And they're getting bankrupted, and their children's children will, if this truth-telling does not continue, and then we hear. We have to be honest about it.
Yes, Jen. Thank you, Queen.
Yeah, I so appreciate what you were saying, because people like to think about history. They like to think about there's this wall between history and the present. And history is ever present, particularly history that's unresolved. And so when you're not able to acknowledge events that were seminal to this community, right? There were several thousand, the numbers were tens of thousands of people in Wilmington, right? In 1898. If you have gunfire now in Wilmington, people know it's going on. So people knew about the widespread terrorism that was going on. They were impacted by it. And so people like to think about racial violence in terms of just the victims. And that's important, right, to understand how it impacted and the trauma on African Americans. But it impacted everyone in this community. And when you have to deny its impact, you have to do that for generations. That means that you're not fully present today because you can't see the fallout about what's going on today. And it's so valuable to start to see that, because then you truly see what's going on in society. You truly see what's going on in Wilmington. You truly see what's going on in the nation when you understand the history. And then you can start to address those things, and you can start learn to be fully present, psychologically, spiritually, in your own community.
And therein lies the value of the continued telling of the stories. I don't know about you all, but we talked about this earlier in the first forum, about there being people who want to know, why are you still talking about it? Well, everything that you all have spoken on here is why we continue to tell, because it's almost as if there was a seed planted and it continues to flourish and grow and affect everyone in this environment.
I moved here in 1987. At that time, it seemed to me the schools were integrated. But over these past 28 or so years, it seems the schools are more and more segregated. The panel to remark on is how can this film be used to help our community understand that we need to go forward with integration again, not stay back with segregation.
Yeah, I've got some stuff to say about that. How many of y'all know your neighbors? Everybody lives on your street. How many of them? Raise your hands. Okay? That's the first thing, community. You got to meet everybody that you know in your neighborhood. Doesn't matter whether they're black, white, gay, Muslim, Jew, doesn't matter. We're all neighbors. We're all stuck with each other. And this is we are. There's never, we are a self-segregated society. And we broke the bonds of legally recognized segregation, but we did not carry on and follow through and cleanse this cancer out of our society. You know, when you were born, most of you, segregation was the law of the land. You were born into that system. You were conditioned to live according to that system that was created and existed when you were born. Now we've broken the legal bonds of it, but there's never a more segregated time in the United States than 11 o'clock on every Sunday morning. Y'all everybody, all of us, we got to do it together. You can't have one part of our society trying to fix this. It's going to take all of us. We all broke it. It's going to take all of us to fix it. And it's going to take us all together, and we're going to have to teach our children. Because if we continue to perpetuate this self-segregation, which is what we live in, we're going to pass it on to our kids. They're going to pass it on to their kids. There's going to be people in this auditorium in 100 years still trying to deal with this. Are we going to leave that legacy for our children? Or are we going to step up to the plate and fix this?
All right, as I already said, I come from places today, 95% of them. So it's not about integrating people. It's about equity and equality of people and the resources those individuals have. So it's not that it's all bad to go to an all-black school. It's not all bad to go to an all-white school. The issue is, what are you learning and who are you learning from when you're in that institution? If these are people who want to teach you all of the things that have been aptly outlined just now by Ken, then that's just the wrong school. And so if you integrate it, it doesn't change it. If the teachers' mindsets are simply passing down the same things they were taught, and they're not open to learning, you have to educate the educators. So let's not fool ourselves. We have not reached this point by accident. Now, when you say, how can we use this film? We can use this film by, number one, there's going to be some companion guides that are going to come out, the study guides to it, and we can use those materials within the schools and make sure that the school district tells you they can't finance it, then you storm the gate. Get to the school board meeting and find out their entire budget and find out why it's not in there. of people that are more, that favor you, just favor you in the mirror at first to talk about it, to get out the pain, the angst, the anger. Then do that first. And then if you need a group look like him, you in that group, then you go ahead. All right? And then we can start to talk about bringing those circles together. I'm a mathematician. So if we want to get the concentric circles, we still got to draw one at a time. We got to draw the other one before we get the meeting.
You know, one of the things that I feel about this film and about everyone in this audience, and I'm going to go back to what I said from the onset, what you're talking about is courage. Someone else mentioned, I think it was Kelly, coming out of your comfort zone. It requires courage to do what we're doing, because oftentimes we see films like Wilmington on Fire, or we have conversations about topics like what this film is about in our silos and with our tribe. But until you break out of those norms and those comfort zones, you're kind of talking amongst yourselves. It requires this kind of bravery. What you're talking about is courage, and this is very provocative, and it even provokes courage, I think. I do. Yes, Mr.
I know when I first started doing the film, Courage, and I would try to get up with some of the older people,
Yes.
like certain people say, yeah, you know, my great-grandmother, she knows some things and stuff like that. Okay, well, does she mind talking on camera? You know, give us some history. Nah, she wouldn't want to do it. I'm like, well, has she written anything down, all this stuff? No, well, say if she dies next week, the story and information dies, but that's not doing our people anyway. You know, but I noticed is, I think older people need to connect with younger people more. Because I know me personally, I like talking to older people. I like learning this. Young people need to start documenting. You know, similar to what I think Spielberg did with Survivors of the Holocaust. He did like a documentary. So you have people that do things like that. And I think we as younger people, we should work with older people, documenting things, writing things down, preserving archival photos and things like that to kind of keep our history alive.
Absolutely. It's more like you've done, yes.
I would just say this to any of the younger people, I take it you mean people 30 and down. The younger people is also respect the elders. That's one thing that we were raised to believe, man, the heart comes with my king. And so when you go to an elder's home, you can't run up in any kind of way, like that. And that means in your attitude, in your behavior, in your clothing style, there's a certain way to approach the elders or you won't get trust from them. And so they're not going to open the door, much less talk to you, okay, if you don't look in a respectable manner. And that's critical in terms of bridging this gap. Because since I work with both sides, and I have members of my family that are 100 and something, they will tell me things they don't tell their grandchildren. Because they don't feel the grandchildren valuable. And they don't necessarily trust them. But they know what I'm going to do with it. And so that also adds to it. It's a wonderful thing to do, but you have to know how to do it.
The element of trust.
The elders.
One of the things that we are going to close with is we have discussed different quotes from famous authors, people that we all know, and each panelist has chosen one. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the quote and ask that you all speak as it relates to the film about the quote that you know, the way we did earlier. So I'm going to start with Kelly. Okay. In a decaying society, art, if it is truthful, must also reflect decay. And unless it wants to break faith with its social function, art must show the world as changeable and help it to change.
So this is very broad, but I'll speak to the film and then I'll speak personally. So to the film, I think that this film not only highlights the decay of past injustices that occurred, but it also opens the mind of a broader audience to know that change is possible. I think when we talk about restoration, what I love about the ending note that you end on in the movie or in the documentary is that Dawood says this wonderful line. For me as a young person, he says, Wilmington is a diamond in the rough, and it has so much young person, it just inspired me so much, I get so passionate about it. It's gonna take a young person to change, to make the shift happen in Wilmington. And what I'll say about my personal life as a spoken word artist and the rap culture, because they're very closely related to what I do and what rap does, is the gentleman was talking about the influence of our younger generation and how do we, both black and white, because white people buy rap music more than blacks do, the statistics show. But what I will say is that I think art lends itself as a forum. As we talk about breaking out of your comfort zone, art inherently lends itself as a forum for multiculturalism, for people to sit in the same room and be forced to listen to other people's stories that they have never heard before. And therein lies when we come together and we can connect.
Awesome, wonderful, thank you. Okay, we'll take you to emancipate yourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds, and that is about our
True. So, yes, because in this situation with the film, the emancipation, I believe, has to come first from the people of Wilmington. So, in order to get there, they needed to see this story head on. None of us, I don't think, in this room were here in 1898. Not in this room we're hearing now. And so, to see it, and then be able to ingest it, accept it, and then begin to heal, you have to begin with the mind. You're transformed by the renewing of your mind. When it is renewed and you realize there was a time of freedom, then you don't accept slavery anymore. You then become the fighter against any chance that shackles could come on you and your community again. So it's going to take that sort of emancipation that then becomes the first circle where we can connect all the others.
And I didn't mention that Ernst Fisher was the person that your quote came from, Kelly, so thank you. I was remiss. We are going to go to Kent. It is important for all of us to appreciate where we come from and how that history has really shaped us in ways that we might not understand. And that is from Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
Well, it's like with this documentary, there's a lot of stories told about 1890s, but the true history has never been revealed. This is really changes the story, because the coup winners wrote the story. And this is now setting history straight. And the only way we're going to change where we're at today, where we've gotten to, is figure out how we got here. And this is part of how we got here. And in order for us to do a societal change, we have to understand how did we get here? None of us were alive in 1890. But by learning our history and seeing how this evolved, if that's what you want to call it, I call it devolved. But we have to understand where it came from. And then there's no magic cure to this. There's no magic wand wave to make it all go away. This is going to take time. And it's going to take effort. And it's going to take everybody.
Jackie, in our work and in our living, we must recognize that difference is a reason for celebration and growth rather than a reason for destruction. Audre Lorde.
I love everything that Audre Lorde has said or written. She's amazing. One of the reasons why I talk so much about personal responsibility is because I believe in personal power. I so value and understand the power of an individual. Even more so, I value the power of community, collective power. And so I feel like it's our responsibility to, now that we've seen the information, the wonderful thing about Women of Fighters, it tells the truth. And it tells the truth unfiltered. So you get a strong viewpoint of Christendom. And of the people that you see in the film. That's really valuable. It's a rare perspective. And that once you see the truth and once you understand the truth, then you can act on it. And you really are part of all that.
And not like I planned it, but I think we're gonna close with Krista. Absolutely. And we're gonna, yeah, here we go. An intellectual says a simple thing in a hard way. An artist says a hard thing in a simple way. Charles Bukowski.
Yeah, that quote kind of caught me because when you see a lot of these intellectual minds,
Yes.
they use these big words and run-ons, sentences. Yeah, but an artist, I just, they write all these books and, because I was reading one book, I even forgot the name of it. And finally, what I'm talking about, because we do like a little study group it's like a little phone call, we have a book group. And I forgot the name of the book, but it's just, man, the words like tongue twisters, like every sentence. And he tells guys, he's a real deep intellectual. But, instead of doing things like that, an artist makes it simple, like spoken word, to make it to a poem, simple, plain, book, painting, film. It's easier to understand. The message is still, because it's like, majority of people, like what Ken always says, how many people actually read the 600-page North Carolina State Report? So the two people can see, but yeah. So that's what I'm saying. And I just did just a 90-minute documentary and just was creative and did it as art. So I think a lot of people are actually, I would say, to get the message out, I think art is really the way to go, being an artist. Anybody can use what they can to tell a story, whether you've got a podcast, radio show, you're a musician, whatever, storyteller, filmmaker, whatever. I think we can use these platforms to really, pave the way for social change.
Wow. You all, I don't want to go, but we need to go. We definitely need to go. And I want to thank all of you for coming out for the film and for the discussion. I want to thank the panelists. I want to thank the Department of Cultural Arts for having the heart to do it and the notion that our community needed it. And yes. And we've got so many people are still planted in their seats. That just means the next time you make a film, it's going to come back and bring more people.
You were going to say they're going to be at the reparation meeting.
So with that said, you all, safe travels and thank you for coming.
Mm-hmm.